All right, so we have the dumbest criticism of Larry Bird. Okay, we all know Larry Legend. Three-time MVP. In a row. One of the greatest shooters ever. To be honest, I haven't heard many people criticize him. So let's see what that's about.
I think the NBA has gotten way past the bounds and watching guys give up dunks to shoot threes on fast breaks. That kind of thing. I think that has hurt the game a lot. Now that's me. I am old school, as we all know. JJ and perfect, but Bird shot plenty of threes, and they had Parrish and McHale. Bird shot plenty of threes. The best. And Bird is one of the great shooters in the history of the sport. Not even close.
Bird shot threes. He never was a volume shooter.
No, I know that, but he was a great.
He was really, if you compare him, relatively to his own era, okay, because like Bird came at the time when when the 3-point line was newly implemented, like if you compare how much he shot in his era, he and you compare him to those high volume shooters that we have today, yes, he did shoot a lot. You can consider him a high volume 3-point shooter. Yes.
He was great. He's one of the top 5 3-point shooters of all time. That's how good Bird is. Oh, yeah,
I don't know about top 5, but
he was phenomenal. Bird was a great shooter.
Bird is absolutely one of the greatest shooters ever, but he's not one of the top 5 3-point, top 3, whatever.
Did you see the 3-point shooting that he put on, those clinics that he put on at the All-Star game?
Again,
did you watch?
Doggy, it's just math. It's attempts, it's makes, and it's percentage. And there's no way you could ever argue Larry Bird is a top 3 3-point shooter of all time. You can't make that argument.
Look, you're basing it on math. You're basing it on math and the time when he played. I'm basing it on just shooting. Bird is a unbelievable.
Again, we had this discussion the other day. About James Naismith. James Naismith invented the game. You were rewarded for putting the ball in the basket. There's plenty of people that have shot more, made more, and guess what? Made more at a higher percentage than Larry Bird from 3. I'm not saying Larry Bird is not one of the greatest shooters ever. He's not one of the greatest 3-point shooters ever.
Generally speaking,
yes, he is, bro. Because you got to realize again, like look at the context, of the era Larry Bird, played in, bro. Like Bird, from 3 shot exactly 38%, okay, for his career, and at that time, league average from 3 was below 30%, okay, like it was like between 28 and 30, okay. 3-point line was again newly implemented. Okay, like the spacing was bad already, during that era, and also coaches, they were really discouraging those types of shots, and the thing about Larry Bird, if you actually watch his games, like he wasn't taking like easy catch and shoot looks, like most of his shots, most of the threes he took, they were actually self-created, And the thing is that a lot of them were also contested. Like relatively, like to his era, that gap over the league is as dominant as any great shooter ever. Okay, which objectively puts him in that conversation of the greatest 3-point shooters in NBA history. Okay, like come on, bro.
Larry Joe Bird is considered as not only one of the greatest players of all time, but as one of the greatest 3-point shooters in the history of the league. Although a growing number of people have been clapping back at that claim, and once upon a time, leading that charge was J.J. Redick. Now, long before he was getting angry as the Lakers head coach, the narrative was getting him angry on ESPN, as you guys all saw in the intro. Before I get too deep into this, I have to say, I don't completely disagree with Redick. Saying Larry Bird is a top 5 3-point shooter of all time is probably a little too much. I mean, just off the top of my head, you have guys like Steph Curry, Ray Allen, Reggie Miller, Klay Thompson, and Damian Lillard. That's a pretty rock solid top 5. Then even competing for the next spots are guys like Steve Nash, Dirk Nowitzki, Kevin Durant, and even James Harden, who was second all time in 3-pointers made. The point is, the competition is incredibly stiff. So I don't necessarily have a problem with someone having Bird out of their top 5. But what I do have a problem with is someone saying that Bird is objectively not one of the greatest three-point shooters of all time.
Yeah, because he
Which
is.
again, Reddit claimed adamantly.
I'm not saying Larry Bird is not one of the greatest shooters ever. He's not one of the greatest three-point shooters ever.
Yes,
To
he
me,
is.
This growing narrative is by far the dumbest criticism of Larry Bird, because it's not only an ignorant thing to say about this legend, but it's also overly simplistic logic to apply against another era of basketball as a whole. Reddick's argument is that Bird didn't shoot enough three-point shots. The argument is mostly against his volume. The problem with that logic is that it's an unfair standard to apply to the NBA's past. Because prior to the 2010s, everyone shot a fraction of the three-point shots that they're shooting today. Which basically means that the only players that are allowed to be in the greatest three-point shooters conversations are all guys that have played within the last 15 years.
Yeah.
Here's where it gets really stupid though. In 2025, teams shot an average of 37.6 three-point attempts per game. And 40 years before that, teams were averaging 3.1 per game.
Yeah, okay.
In Steph Curry's historic 2016 season, he attempted 886 three-point attempts throughout the regular season.
Like, bro, imagine if Larry Bird attempted that many, bro.
In 1986, combined, Bird's Celtics as a whole only attempted 396 threes in 1986.
Exactly. Like, this was a different game back then. Like, so you just can't. Come on, bro.
To put it simply, if Steph Curry played in Bird's era, he wouldn't be allowed to shoot that many threes.
Exactly.
No one was, because coaches at the time didn't think it was smart and efficient basketball.
Exactly. Discouraging those
Bird shot
shots.
less threes in the 80s, but Bird would have shot significantly more in this era.
Yeah, hell yeah, a lot more.
That would disqualify Steph from being in the conversation, regardless of how efficient he would have been, and regardless of how he would have stood out from the competition in that era.
Yeah.
With that nonsensical logic, modern players like Tyler Herro and Jordan Poole are considered better three-point shooters than a prime Reggie Miller and a prime Ray Allen. Make it make sense.
Yeah, exactly, bro.
Now, at one point, Reddick was in an interview and he was getting mad at the hypotheticals.
Well, wasn't there
And the argument against that is, oh, well, if he had played in today's era, he would be a top five. What? That doesn't even make sense. That's not based in reality or fact.
Wait.
Let's talk reality. And
Yeah, but this is why you have to compare people relatively to their era, bro. Like, you can't just be completely unfair and just, like, come on, bro.
40-90 seasons. The other two are a couple of the greatest three-point shooters of all time in Steve Nash and Kevin Durant. Reddit claimed that Bird was never a volume three-point shooter, which is objectively incorrect. During Bird's first 50-40-90 season, he led the entire league in three-pointers made.
Yeah,
and in
like,
three-pointers
relatively to
attempted.
his own era, yes, he was high volume, bro.
Same season, Bird was attempting more three-point attempts per game than the entire Detroit Pistons roster, which is who his Celtics played against in the Eastern Conference Finals. The year prior, in their historic 1986 season, Bird averaged more three-point attempts per game than nearly one-third of the teams within the league. Between 1985 and 1992, with a minimum of 400 games played, Bird had the fourth best three-point percentage in the entire league, and he was second overall in attempts during that span, only bested by the very underrated Dale Ellis, who I would argue is also one of the all-time great three-point shooters. Larry Bird is tied for the most three-point contests won in NBA history with a total of 3. In Bird's final round of the 1986 three-point shootout, he scored 22 out of a possible 30 points. That is 73.3% of a possible perfect score, which is the 9th highest in NBA history. All-time great shooters like Ray Allen, Kevin Durant, Damian Lillard, and Dirk Nowitzki have never achieved a final round score that efficient. J.J. Redick has also never achieved a score that high, regardless of the round, which is necessary for me to state, seeing how he never made it past the first round in a three-point contest, despite having tried multiple times. Plain and simple, Bird was one of the greatest three-point shooters in NBA history.
He was.
I personally don't care if you have him outside of your top 5, top 10, or top 20, because all of that can be debated.
Yeah.
To act like he doesn't belong in the conversation at all, simply because of the era he played in, while completely ignoring the context of the time, is simply one of the dumbest criticisms
Exactly,
you could
bro.
possibly
That's
make.
just casual take.
So what do you guys think? Where do you personally rank Larry Bird among the greatest shooters in NBA history? I look forward to hearing your thoughts below.
Hey,
Stay tuned for more videos in this quote, Dumbest Criticism series. And shout out to the members for all the ways you support me and my channel. Thanks for watching as always. Make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content. And I'll see you guys in the next video.
anyways, what do you guys think of this? Do you guys think Bird is one of the greatest three-point shooters ever? Or do you have him in your top 5, top 10, top 20? Let me know down there in the comments. Let's go.